lộn, hột vịt sữa, trứng cút lộn, mất xào đây.
Hello, Mizuka.
Hello.
How are you?
I am all right. Just another day in the quarantine facilities. D10.
So, for everyone listening, welcome to the third episode of the special quarantine season, which is technically season 3 of 7 Million Bikes. If you've listened to previous episodes and you're coming back, thank you. If you're a new listener, welcome to the show. You can go back and get previous episodes on 7millionbikes.com or on Facebook, on Spotify, iTunes, all the places that you get your podcast. And you can also get updates on the Facebook page, which is 7 Million Bikes. So I'm Neil Mackay. I'm the host, as always. And today I have a special guest who is also a fellow quarantee or an inmate. And so just to give a bit of a background, well, first of all, thank you very much for joining us. We have Mizuka Yasuda.
That's it.
So Mizuka, actually, this is maybe the first time I've ever, for my wife and I, we both were saying yesterday, it's the first time we've ever connected with someone online and then met them in the real world. So what happened was, if you've seen the Facebook page for 7 Million Bikes, when we first got here, we went on to Reddit and we did an AMA, which is an Ask Me Anything. And that was that kind of blew up a bit. We got lots of responses, and actually had a few messages from friends around the world being like, "Did you guys do an AMA? We just saw it on Reddit." And then what happened was Mizuka was one of those people that read AMA and was like, "Wait a minute, that sounds familiar." So she sent me a direct message saying, "Are you in quarantine in so and so?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's us." She's like, "I'm here as well." And so through that, she then connected with my wife on Instagram, because my wife uses Instagram. I don't really use that. And we added her to we've got a quarantine WhatsApp group with a whole bunch of people as well. We're all trying to keep each other informed and helping each other. And then after that was we've been here for 9 days. I think that was how long ago? A week ago, maybe?
Yeah. It was the
Something like
night
that.
before you guys came in. Yeah.
And we connected, I think, about a day or two after we got here. And then finally, last night, when we were out for our evening stroll, we finally encountered each other at a distance with masks on. But we were able to finally meet each other. So thank you for being on the show, Mizuka.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
And this is also the first ever time I've done a phone interview. So we're using Skype. So we'll see how this goes. Hopefully it works, and hopefully the sound quality will be good for anyone listening. So Mizuka, tell me and tell everyone a little bit of a background. Basically, how did you end up in quarantine? Who are you? Where do you come from? And how did you end up here?
So my name is Mizuka Yasuda. I'm half Japanese, half Vietnamese. So I was born in Ho Chi Minh City with my parents, and we live here. I've been in the United States for school as a study abroad candidate. And until recently, I was in Rochester, New York, home of Kodak, which I don't know if anyone knows, but yeah, I was there for a couple while. Well, I was there for, I think it was my third year, and we were approaching our spring break. So this is going to be just to put it there that this is from a university student's perspective. I don't know how many students you've interviewed, so
You are the first one.
Yeah, just hopefully my naivete could be passed off. But yeah, so we were going into spring break, and we were in America, and I was in America, and I heard about Corona around December, and I knew my parents were in Vietnam, and we hadn't really talked much about it, so I didn't think it was affecting it heavily, although towards March we started hearing a lot more happening. My parents live on one of the major commercial roads, and they were starting to tell me that a lot of the businesses were starting to close down, and that this was going to be something a lot more serious. And I think that's when it really ticked. or it hit for me knowing that this is a very serious concern. This was before WHO announced that it would be a pandemic. Yeah, and we were going into break, and I had planned to go to Japan with a partner of mine in the second week of March. And we had already planned this for 6 months ahead, and we were super excited and didn't really think it would affect our trip. But then we started seeing things being canceled online for places that we were going to go to in Japan, refunds and whatever, and we started getting anxious. My parents started telling me not to go, and it was really difficult because both of us were really excited, and we had put in quite a bit of money towards this, as students. But then, the more we thought about it, it seemed more logical for us to not go to Japan, considering what was going down, even with the Diamond Princess cruise ship and all of that. So we canceled our trip, and we ended up going to Montreal just for a short break for a week. We went to Montreal and Quebec City, and honestly, it was probably the better choice that we did that, just because we didn't have to worry as much about potential travel bans between Japan and the US, because at this point, from the students' perspective, I was getting emails from our international student services at our college saying that they would highly advise us not to go to Japan and parts of Europe. This was probably before they released the travel ban from Europe, between America and Europe. And so things were just escalating while we were on this trip in Canada.
This was around then March 5th, is that right? If it's the travel ban was March 12th, right?
Yeah, I think this was within the first week of March or second week of March. We were, watching the news roll in as it was just, just increasing in this immense speed. The news was different every day. They had new information, and it just started looking a lot more real, especially in the West. And so by the time I came back, I started also receiving emails from my university saying that, okay, school will be extended for a week. We're going to figure out how things are going to go. It might be just temporary. Don't worry about it. And then 2 days later, we had another email saying, okay, we're going to be shutting down temporarily. If you are students who live on campus, you may come back, but try avoid being on campus. And then a day or two later, again, we received another email saying, okay, you guys have to leave by April 5th. Please get rid of all your things. We are closing the university location for the entirety of the semester. But
you couldn't even leave your stuff there.
No, we couldn't leave our stuff there. And they said they're going to, they are moving everything to online, and so we'll have online classes moving forward. So we were actually thankful that, at least for my school, that we got a week break extension of our spring break, because without that time, I think it would have been a lot crazier. We were also given so much more time, and it's not even April 5th now, to move things out of our dormitories and living quarters. So that was good. I heard that there were a lot of other friends of mine in bigger city schools, and they were only given a 3-day notice, from their first email of, we're closing everything, everything's shutting down, we will be online, move out right now, please. And it was crazy.
I love how you got an email saying don't worry about it, and then 2 days later it's pretty much like, oh, you should worry about it now.
Yeah, no, it definitely didn't feel right, for sure. And around about this time, we came back from Canada. We went by car, but we went back in from the Canadian border. And I was actually stopped at the border, and I am not an American national, my partner is. So I started getting nervous, whether it was to do with my visa, or is it a travel ban that we didn't hear of that may have changed in the last hour or so, but it was just a small mishap. So thankfully it was okay. We got back though, and at that point, my partner works for a IT company that's pretty global. They're the CEO of that company actually sent out a company-wide email saying that please work from home moving forward and have food stocked up for, at least 45 days, a month to 2 months. And, we didn't really think much of it until well, I already started feeling worried, but my partner really like shifted gear after having received that email and said that, I think this might be serious. And his reasoning was that the CEO is on quite a few boards, executive boards with President Trump. And so him having said something like that may mean that this is something that's a lot more serious. And so we hopped into the car and started our self-quarantine. I had a whole extra week of break at this point, and my school wasn't completely shut down yet. But we got onto the car and went for a quick grocery run. And this was the first time my parents messaged me saying that maybe I should consider going home. And I typically don't go home as much. Since I've been studying abroad, I only go home once a year. And it's only for short periods of time, like 3 weeks during winter break. So this would have been, out of the ordinary. I do so to, save a bit of money, try to use my resources in the US, but this was starting to feel a lot more real, and I think there's definitely an element of denial, me being with my partner and feeling that it's probably a lot safer to stay in one place instead of going to airports as well. But we still went out to the grocery store, and it was really interesting because this was only the start of the toilet paper outbreak in the US.
Papergate.
Yeah. We went to Whole Foods, which is slightly nicer of a place. At this point, we were in Rhode Island, which is a state right below Massachusetts, sort of neighboring New York. But it's a very...
Rhode Island. I used to live there.
Oh, you did? Where were you in?
Yeah. Mostly kind of Wakefield, Narragansett area.
Okay.
Providence. Still got a lot of good friends in Rhode Island. If anyone's listening, hello.
Oh my goodness, I love Providence. Providence is probably my most favorite city so far.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, but so we went to Whole Foods there, and that there's a lot of nice privileged folk around there, and there's a lot of people who uses that Whole Foods, and it was really interesting just seeing how crazy things were. They weren't limiting the amount of people who could go into supermarkets yet, or the number of people who could go to supermarkets. So we walked in, and there were so many people. This was probably the first wave of people or working career people at the grocery store trying to hoard on stuff, probably because their company also sent out a company-wide email, much like the CEO of my partner. And yeah, it was really funny. We went to the meat aisle and the packaged meats, and the only things that were remaining was $20 veal, fancy game, or Cornish hens that were really, really small. There's this woman.
You're gonna have a bougie quarantine then.
Yeah, for sure. And there's this woman just looking between the two, and she picks up the tiny little packaged Cornish hen with her fingers and just kind of makes a face. And it's just comical. Yeah, and then we walked along a bit more into the produce section, and there's an old couple, and the woman is yelling at the man saying, "What do you mean there's no more asparagus?" or whatever they were talking about. And there's a woman on the phone. Actually, there was low potatoes. That's what it was. She was saying, "What do you mean there's no potatoes?" And there were no potatoes for some reason. I guess it's one of the produce that lasts longer, so they were just hoarded all up. And then, some people are on the phone. They're talking, saying, yeah, the organic asparagus are all gone. Times are tough. And as comical as it is, and kind of ridiculous, it's what we saw, you know. So yeah, but we were able to hoard quite a bit, and it was a month and a half. And at this point, I was talking to my partner, and we were saying, yeah, you know what, I should just probably stay here with you, limit the amount of travel for me. We're here safe. We have the stuff, we have the goods, so it should be fine. And I can just continue my education with my laptop if it's all online. But it just started escalating. My parents got more desperate and they were saying, okay, you know what, there's a lot more travel bans happening here and there. Probably um, come home sooner. Don't and
What date was that around? Do you remember?
I could pull up my phone. This was the weekend, the second weekend of March. So probably between, yeah, it all like shifted from 13, 14, 15, 16.
Yeah. Which
Yeah.
was about the same for us, yeah, when things really started changing quickly.
Yeah, yeah. My parents were saying that I had to come home. Well, first it was maybe you should consider going home, and then, oh, maybe you should contact the school and ask their administration what would happen with my visa status, with my education, had I left. My father started saying things like as if I might not even go back to school for a whole nother year. And honestly, I don't know what to expect, but that is one of the, more serious scenarios that we could consider. So I wasn't sure about that, and I had to ask, but it was the weekend, so I had an excuse to say, you know what, I still have to ask the school, but it's going to take a while. But from one day to another, it was constantly, well, this is happening and that is happening. We have this new information. I have my own information, but where are they reading their information? And I mean, to a certain extent, you have those parents or family members who read all sorts of things online, uncertain of it being fact checked or whatever. And that's not just them, but it could also be me and other of my peers. Just pretty much reading the article titles and not really reading the rest of the article sometimes. Yeah, short information span, short attention span. That's the Gen Z problem, I suppose. But yeah, it was really nerve-wracking, and I think I knew my parents were right, but I was trying to reason why it would have been better that I stayed in one place. And my partner and I kept saying that, well, we kept rating saying that like it's not affecting young people, it only affects older people. And, you know, 2 weeks
I think
later,
everyone's gone through those stages,
yeah,
in the beginning where I think, and I've seen some funny videos about it, everyone goes through like denial in the beginning, like, it's just the flu. I mean, I know I've gone through this, oh, is it that big a deal? And then it doesn't affect, it's only, I'm all going to be okay because I'm young, but now we're starting to understand the full picture. It's not about us being young or whatnot, it's about protecting the people who are vulnerable. But I mean, in the beginning, yeah, you definitely don't really think about that too much.
yeah, no, I think the fact that we chose not to go to Japan was our first turning point of this is serious. And then we really limited everything, washed our hands, made sure every time, even from Montreal, we started doing that and, hoarding the food and everything. But eventually it just built up, and I still had some things I needed to bring with me in order to do my work online. So I had to return to campus regardless. And I ended up saying that, I had to go back Monday morning. So I did. I booked a train immediately, and I decided to go to the train instead of going to an airport just because I felt that it could be safer. My train ride would be 10 hours or 9 hours, but I generally sit in the same place, and it's relatively clean, and I wouldn't really move anywhere, so...
Yeah.
And there wouldn't be as much contact with other people for sure. So I opted for the train, even though my parents told me I should have flown. Well, they actually don't know I took a train. They just knew that I went back. But
Right.
still, that was me trying to take measures, thinking that that's the right decision to do. But I went back up, and on that long train ride, I had to go back and forth, and my parents were adamant that I go home. But that morning, my mom messaged saying, maybe you should stay. And, I'm getting torn left and right throughout this entire weekend. And eventually, I bought the tickets. It was a one-way trip. I didn't know when I was going to come back. My visa is actually going to run out soon, so technically it's okay. It's a good thing that I can leave and maybe renew my visa. But yeah, so I bought the
Well, I was
train.
gonna ask. Oh, sorry, on you go.
Oh, I bought the ticket for that Thursday, so I was coming back Monday, packing everything. That's when that's also the date that I received the email saying that we should move everything off campus and that campus would be closed. So yeah, bought my tickets to fly Thursday morning. I would arrive Monday night, pack everything Tuesday, Wednesday, and then be back. So you're saying?
Oh yeah. So yeah, no, I mean, it's just incredible listening to all of that and empathizing with the back and forth and the being torn on decisions and so ultimately was it the fact that your parents were worried and that you were worried that you may be locked out of Vietnam for a considerable period and then stranded in America, or what were the reasons that you were thinking of staying in the States? Like what was the ultimate decision, I guess, and the factors involved in that?
So, I mean, I knew how serious things were going to be, but I understood that if I was still in the United States, my partner had offered that I could stay with them. I could just stay and work and study, develop on other things, maybe still apply for internships, and I could still be there. I have decent health insurance because I am automatically enrolled into once I am a student.
Right.
So it wasn't going to be as bad. However, my parents started feeling that there weren't as measures set or infrastructure set into place in America as there were in Vietnam. With these quarantine facilities, there's plenty of masks. There's a lot of initiative, and this quarantine facility is free, and they're doing
Yeah.
tests. So at this point, I thought that it was fair that I should go home. The only thing was that if I left, I don't know if I could come back in. I also followed on the train ride. I tried to search for I reached out to the national agency that works with offices that work with international students in America. And they released a statement saying that they would not try to revoke our visas in this moment because it is difficult for everyone. Although they highly recommend, like, they were saying that it might not be likely that if they left the country and needed to renew their visas, that they could get the visa renewed because a lot of embassies are going to close and are probably closing and might not be open for quite some time. So that was definitely a worrisome thought because it's a visa that I need to get me back into the US to finish my last year of my studies. And so I
You only
thought,
got one more year left.
yeah, I have a year left, Um, and, food and everything is fine. I would still have my resources, and at least I would be in the same time zone as some of my peers, my professors, and other resources that I would like to use, but I would be slightly cut off of that if I came back to Vietnam. However, at the same time, my parents were worried that, well, what if I can't even go back home? But I wasn't thinking that it would last until December, at least the most I feel that this would have lasted was until October, and I would come home December regardless. So I think it would have died down then. I don't really return to Vietnam in the summer, so I didn't feel much of a moment of stress there. Although my parents were saying that, well, what if, like, think of what is it? Think of the worst case possible is that I get caught and I die or something like that. And if my parents can't come into the US because of travel bans or something happens to my parents and I can't go home, then what of them? And I think that really rung with me.
Yeah.
But it
Jeez,
was
I mean
definitely,
that's really worst case scenario.
yeah. But that's why I was
That's what you have to
saying
think
that it's
about.
not affecting young people, you know?
Mm,
And I was just trying to say that me going through, flying from the US to Vietnam, I go through three major international airports. So isn't that posing more of a risk? Like, what does, that's not
mm,
really ideal, is pretty much where I was coming from at that point. It's just,
yeah.
I would like to return. I think that would be better with that reason, but what am I going to get exposed to? And what if I bring that back
Mm.
to my parents? There's that
Yeah,
sense of guilt.
because that's where I think, and we talked about this when I recorded our episode, on our flight back, we were just terrified. We had gloves on. I think I mentioned we had our own little corner where we just stayed in because we didn't want to get the disease and then bring it back, and it's like, but we have to get home.
Hmm.
So yeah, no, I completely empathize. It's pretty terrifying at that point, and especially if you're coming back to parents. It's definitely a concern. So you made the decision. You got on the flight on the Thursday, which was the day before we got back.
Hmm.
Um, what were you expecting then to come back to?
So, I just knew that I was going to come back and I didn't know how, but I knew I was going to be at a facility, some quarantine center. Um, I didn't really do much research upon that because the moment I arrived back in Rochester to clear everything and put things away and, try to organize all of that, pack up my life over there, figure out storage and bring it there and, pack everything to go home, I didn't really look at the news then. I didn't really read much there. I didn't know of the updates. Um, and I was just going to let it happen as it does. It's no point worrying because the outcome is still the same. I can be a bit of a realist like that, which kind of helps. Um,
Mm,
but I just knew that I was going to be in quarantine center, but we just got on the flight and that was that. But it's actually interesting, from the Rochester airport to Newark airport in New Jersey. um, my flight was United Airlines and no one was wearing masks, maybe myself and like one or two other people, but the flight attendant, the cabin crew, nothing at all. They acted fairly normal. The flight was pretty empty, but it was okay. We all had some kind of distance. And then my
mm,
second flight from Newark to Narita Airport was also United Airlines. Um, and there were a lot of Japanese cabin crew members, and they were all wearing their masks. And in comparison to the American cabin crew member, in my section at least, the American Caucasian woman was wearing a mask herself. It was not the same as the Japanese cabin crew members, but she was wearing a mask. And there was one male American cabin crew member, and he didn't really wear a mask, and he seemed just as he would be, all relaxed and very welcoming and smiling. Um, but on that flight, once we got seated, the Japanese cabin crew members actually tried to separate our seats, because it was still a fairly air, open flight. So she moved some of us, saying that we should all sit far apart from each other, which is actually kind of great, that they did that. I think it's a good way to, take that into their own hands. It wasn't really said on the PA system, but she would say, if you are next to each other, sit one person aside, or you over there, there's some seats over there, please move over there, and all of that. So
that's great. Yeah, they didn't do
yeah.
that on our flight at all.
Yeah, and then we arrived in Japan and there was so much more masks. Newark Airport started showing some other masks too, and a lot of the entertainment and lounges were closed, at
Mm,
Newark Airport. At the Japanese airport in Narita, there were actually still some lounges open, a few stores were open, but masks everywhere for sure. There's a lot more people, um, and I was on the All Nippon Airway flight, and actually on the PA system. they said that they had added something else, which was, if you're coughing or sneezing, please don't let that splash around next to you, and please contain it. Which was just really funny to hear, especially when spoken in Japanese. It wasn't really said in English though in their translation, but I thought it was an interesting thing that they added. And then
That's lucky for you, so I'm assuming you can speak Vietnamese, Japanese, and English.
yeah,
That's
so I got
quite
to.
handy in an airport when they're giving out warnings in Japanese then.
Um, but yeah, so we got back, and at this point, I think it was just great to not be connected to the internet for a good moment in the air, just because all the I would all that it would do for me to read more news is just to let me understand, but it really doesn't help with how I feel about the situation and what is going to happen. I just know I'm going to be in quarantine. But my parents did message a few times here and there saying, okay, it looks like you'll be quarantined for 10 days. And then by the time I arrived, one of them said, okay, so I see that apparently you can pay your way to be at a hotel quarantine facility, or you're just going to get put into some quarantine facility. I don't know. Ask about it.
Your parents said that to you before you got here, or before
That's
you
when I
got to immigration?
landed. No, that's
When
when
you
I landed.
yeah.
Yeah. I
Because we
just
found
before.
that out after, but when we already got here, that apparently a hotel was an option, but it was too late by that point. And also, I think we read somewhere it was going to be like $100 a day, which if you're going to be here for 14 days, that's a pretty huge expense.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Actually, my parents said that it would my mom said if it's just $20 a day, that's the most that she would go.
You're
My,
right, yeah.
yeah, but my dad said nah, it would be fine. But in the end, I didn't really have the chance to even ask about it. I was just equally as confused, and it was late. I'd just rather go through the motions. How bad can it be, paid or not paid? So I'm not too picky. So my
So
parents.
what happened? So you arrived at the airport, and then
We
I'm
went
assuming you
to.
had a similar experience as us, apart from didn't have the drama of nearly being sent back on a flight because you have a Vietnamese passport, right?
I do, thankfully. Yeah, actually,
Hey.
that would have affected me at the Japanese airport had I not shown my Vietnamese passport. Um, because at the Japanese airport, as soon as we landed, we were told that we should go to a transfer counter or connecting flight counter to make sure that we have all the visas and everything, because I'm sure they were trying to keep up with different countries' laws and helping make sure that they can take certain guests from different nationalities to the next country that they need to go to. So, um, so it was interesting. I never really had to do that when I've done a connection before in Narita, but I did. And then once we were trying to board at the gate, there were a lot of people getting stopped and told
No way.
getting told that they couldn't get on the plane or that they had to wait for a moment. There was probably 20 people standing around, and I was also one of them. But I just showed them that I had my Vietnamese passport, and it worked
Yeah.
out. But it
That
was.
was our concern, that
Mhm.
we were going to get stopped on the flight to even get here. But when we got to the desk, she went through all of our documentation. She's like, "Yep, you'll be fine." So we at that point we were like, "Okay, it looks like we're going to get back to Vietnam," but we still were unsure what was going to happen next.
Yeah, it
I'm
was really
surprised.
heartbreaking for sure. They were just
Why?
watching some other families who are Vietnamese and not being able to go home, and some of them they were just begging to let them go back, but they don't have the Vietnamese nationality anymore because they have a U.S. passport and citizenship instead.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised. So why did you end up? How did you get put in quarantine then? Because even on the flight that we arrived on the day after you, we're not 100% sure, but we're fairly certain that there was a lot of Vietnamese nationals on that flight were allowed to go home and self-isolate. Again, we're not 100% sure on that. So why were you not given the option then as a Vietnamese citizen to go home? Why were you directed straight to quarantine?
Because I came from the U.S.
Right.
By the time I was still in the U.S. preparing to go home, it was already on the list of places
Right.
that was to be quarantined. The U.S. would have been, if you were from the U.S., my parents had last told me that I would be quarantined for 10 days. But by the time I got here, went through the health department or health officials, I was told that I had to be quarantined for the full 14 days.
Yeah. That's right, because the difference with our flight was coming from Australia, which wasn't on the list, so that would be why those people would have gotten through and gone home to quarantine or self-isolate. That would have been the difference. So, from our conversations online and through chat, we're both in the same facility. You're in the building that's just opposite ours, but it seems like we've had quite different experiences in terms of food, in terms of the information we've received, in terms of maybe, I don't know, living quarters are pretty similar, but do you want to explain to any of the listeners who've maybe listened to already the description that Adrie and I have given and with Anastasia of our experience in quarantine, how has that experience been for you?
So I guess everyone knows that this is a university dormitory that got makeshift into a quarantine facility. We arrived fairly late, and I couldn't really tell what that would look like. I've never been at a Vietnamese university before or a dorm here, so it was interesting just trying to get in. There weren't that much of us. There was probably 2 or 3 buses. They told us to leave our luggage, go in, write out some forms, had our temperatures taken, and they hosed down our luggage in this meantime. It was really shocking when I went to get it back. It was drenched.
Yeah, soaked in bleach, right?
Yeah. But I went in and, I traveled solo. There's other few people who traveled solo, so I was surrounded by other ladies who, I don't know, we're just in our own bubble. But we found each other and got to be in our room, the 4 of us. So we've been in this room. It's been okay. Sorry, just could you repeat the question again?
Yeah, sorry, I'm getting distracted as well because we have people at the door right now asking questions, and I'm like, what do they want? Is it temperature? Is someone tested positive for COVID? Who knows what's going on? The question was, how has the quarantine been for you, and how has it been different for us? So you talk about we've talked about how there's the 3 of us here. Who are you in a room with? Because you said you're with other solo travelers.
Yeah, so we weren't allowed to go up to a room until there was 4 people. So it's me, a Vietnamese high schooler, but she was going to school in the US and California, an older lady, probably between 60s and 70s. She was visiting family for 6 months in the US. I don't know where, but she came back. And then a Malaysian/Singaporean national who was here for work. Slightly older, probably in mid-20s, but it's the 4 of us. Yeah, we got to our rooms and we weren't given anything. There's only straw mats on our bunk beds. We closed the door and just passed out for the night. And honestly, we didn't know how many people were here. There's only 3 buses when we came, so the process was fairly fast, and we got to our room a little sooner than your building, actually. But we got here, and I couldn't sleep that night as much because I had jet lag, and I woke up and I started seeing, 8 buses piling around the block of your guys' building, and that had continued all the way until morning. And following to the next day, and there's so many people standing outside, so I think it was good that we didn't really have the experience. I suspect that that's one of the things that was different, was that our building filled up fairly quickly, but without too much hassle. But yeah, we woke up the next day and weren't sure where to go, but we knew that we needed to go somewhere to gather some information. So we went down to the lobby where we filled out our forms and saw that there were people just picking up stuff, just bags of equipment or whatever was needed. So each of us had gotten a little, supermarket bag filled with slippers, one small pink towel, kind of like a facial towel, 14 packets of shampoo, 14 packets of body wash. For those of you who can't picture it, think of the little ketchup packets you get from McDonald's, but shampoo and body wash is in those. So
That's a
that's what we
great
have.
description.
Yeah.
They're all over. If you're from Vietnam or you live in Vietnam, you know exactly what you're talking about. But other countries, we don't have them, right?
No.
But that's amazing that you. So that's one of the big differences. Because yeah, I remember you told us you got this like package of things like shampoo, towel, slippers. We got like nothing on the first night, which is fine. But we got nothing on the next day. Everything we got, we luckily got through care packages. So we had people send us cleaning supplies. Luckily, we had some shampoo. Anastasia had some slippers sent because she didn't have any footwear. We didn't mention this on Anastasia's podcast because she was on a business trip. She literally only had really business clothes with her. She didn't have like any clothes to just hang out in, so I had to lend her a pair of shorts. She got some t-shirts sent. So that was a difference. I remember when you said that you got all that stuff, we were like, what? We didn't get any of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we also had a toothpaste. Some of the bags came in toothbrush. I don't know if there's anything else, but I think that was the gist of it, and that came with breakfast. And breakfast was great that day.
I imagine by the time we got here, they'd just run out of all of that stuff, which is fair enough because there was so many people coming. And then, so from our communications on message and stuff, so the food situation for your building and for our building has been quite vastly different as well. We seem to get consistent meals. There's never been a problem with them. Quite repetitive, but that's fine. What's the situation been with your meals? Because it's not as good as ours from what we've been discussing.
Well, I feel like I'm also just really surprised because it seems like our building were the people that came first, so we should have it equal or if not better or I don't know, something like that. But here we are, and we've had breakfast almost every day, and there's a variety actually. It sounds like your guys' building has a lot of, pork buns, bao, or whatever, but we've been having one day it's
every morning.
congee. Yeah, over here we've had rice porridge congee or rice noodle, or one of the days we had the option for bao, but I haven't seen that option since. We had banh mi one morning.
Banh mi. We've not had banh mi once. I'd love a banh mi.
Rice cakes. Yeah. Oh,
You
actually,
guys are our building.
speaking of banh mi, did you get any food when you're at the airport waiting to be put on a bus?
We did, yeah. Thankfully,
Okay.
they broke open a bag of like croissants and milk and stuff. So that, yeah, I mean, in terms of that, it's just been really impressive how prepared they are, how much stuff they have for us. Anything about like repetition of food is I'm just joking because I'm just grateful for what we're getting. But it's just quite funny that you're the building over and you've been getting a variety of stuff. But then at the same time, so you said a few times that your food has become spoiled or unedible because it's sitting out for too long, whereas our food comes often it's either still warm or we've never had any spoiled food or anything like that. That's right.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, food. Yeah, so it looks like our foods are coming from all sorts of places. There's little stickers sometimes that you can find where it's coming from. It's coming in, big bags or whatnot. But I think it might be because of the weather and that they're accommodating a larger number of people that they might have to start cooking it much earlier. And so having that, transported in these metal vans, it's heating up very quickly and things are arriving spoiled actually. It's
Yeah.
kind of appalling. Apparently there's also like a radio system here in the building, but it's really hard to see or hard to hear with the muffled tones. I sometimes have trouble picking up hearing some Vietnamese here and there, and it's because I speak multiple, but it's a lot harder with the radio, so I miss out on a few things. But for the first day,
do you
it seemed.
feel?
Yes?
On you go. No, you
Oh.
continue.
Okay, so on the first day, it seemed like we just went down to pick up everything, which didn't seem quite as sanitary, but we came down for breakfast, lunch, and dinner to pick up our stuff, so we thought that was the norm. But then we were told that from day 2 that we had to stay in our rooms and that food would be delivered to us. So that was really interesting. And actually on day 2, we started having a lot of, items that were spoiling, whether it was soups or vegetables. It was always one or the other, and it's kind of, it's sour, and you definitely know it's not right to eat. But there's been a variety of, we've had fish some days, cabbages or morning glory, or pumpkin soup and watercress soup and pork or chicken. So there's been a wide variety, so that's been nice from time to time. Noodles, but day 2 or 3, we did not really get to eat until, well, we didn't even have lunch. Things started coming late, or they didn't really tell us that we had to go down and pick up food ourselves. And so we were just stuck here, just hungry, and it's been weird. And then day
Because
3,
we never missed a meal.
yeah, no, we missed a meal, and day 3 they started telling us that we couldn't go outside of our room at all because they had a high suspect. There's a potential case from our flight that came with us, so they were waiting on results from them, and so we couldn't even leave the room. So, but they at least gave us like a hotline that we can call and ask. So I've just been, and my roommates and I have just been calling to ask, do we pick up our food or do we go, or is it getting delivered? That's literally something I do now almost every day before a meal, just to check.
Being able to speak Vietnamese, do you feel more informed? Do you feel you get more information?
No, not really. I think it's difficult because I can speak Vietnamese on a day to day, but most of my education has been in English. So, advanced languages like the term quarantine is something I had to learn being here. There's a lot more advanced vocabulary to do with the government or things that processes and systems, and that has been a bit of a challenge.
You gotta learn a new type of Vietnamese, quarantine Vietnamese.
Yeah.
And how did that feel when you found out that there could have been a potential case on your flight?
I wasn't surprised just because I've been following the Ministry of Health's website on all the cases that are coming in, and I saw that the same flight of mine for 2 days before had a case, had a confirmed case the night before that and the night before that as well. So I felt that I was nervous, but I had a feeling that that would be the same for my flight too, that there might be someone. But I've been following it since, and really there's been no response. So I think my flight may have been able to skip out on a case.
And you've been tested now, right? Like it took you a long time to get the first COVID test, right?
Finally, it was yesterday. I came in last Saturday night or Friday night.
10 days?
Yeah, 10 days, and I finally got my COVID test, whereas you guys got it on Wednesday instead of Sunday.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And we've also now heard about that you need to have had 2 negative COVID tests before you leave. Have you heard this?
No, yeah, well, I only heard from you guys last night. So
everyone hears from someone. No one knows really anything for sure, but
exactly.
So that's what we're now hoping, that we get a second COVID test soon, so that we can because apparently we get a certificate when we leave to show we're negative, so we're all going to get that framed and show that off to people.
Perfect. Oh, actually, I was going to ask you guys, did you guys get your discharge paperwork? Because we had
No, so yeah, we're very jealous. So you should be discharged on Friday, right? And today is Monday. What was the discharge paperwork?
It basically just says your name, where you lived in the facility, and then if you want it to be dropped off and where you want it to be dropped off, or if you're having someone pick you up, what date and when. But it had to be exactly 14 days. The only thing is, it says it has to be 14 days from the time you're here, and it's hard to understand because could I just it seemed like they weren't checking. So could I just have written like a day earlier? They wouldn't have noticed. And they said it had to be
Maybe.
in the morning or the afternoon. And I also thought, well, I could always just say, get me out at 8 a.m. But I don't know. But they came
Yeah,
around to
so
pick
many
it up.
unanswered
So
questions. Well, I think that that's good. That's enough. I think we've shared your story. Thank you for sharing that. Because what I'm just finding so interesting is the more people you talk, everyone's just got their own story, which is always the case no matter what. But especially in this situation, no two stories are the same. And I think everyone's kind of gone through the same stages of like you kind of mentioned, almost denial, then acceptance, and trying to figure things out, and then having competing and conflicting opinions and reading so much. I think that seems to be the same the world over. But overall, how are you doing?
um, I think that it's a little bit more positive now. I'm just waiting for a couple more days. I've been trying to stay optimistic, but it's hard to do. So I think I'm on my 10th TV show. Don't tell my parents.
Uh, so what TV shows have you been watching? Share with the world. Everyone needs advice on what to watch.
Oh, I caught up on Terrace House, which is a Japanese reality TV show, which is nothing like a typical American reality TV show. Really fun. I highly suggest. It's just a bunch of people living in a house together and in their day to day, and it's kind of wholesome. But I caught up with that. I watched Next in Fashion and other. Oh, I started a little bit of Travels with My Father, which is a great kicker if you like to see what a potential relationship between a child and father could be when the father is
Is that
an
with
interesting
Jack
figure.
Whitehall?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. I haven't seen it, but yeah, I know the one. And have
Yeah.
you watched Tiger King?
Oh, I've heard about it, but I think I'm gonna save it to watch with my mother.
All right, you gotta watch that one. Now we're gonna finish with I've some questions that I asked Adrie and Anastasia yesterday, so I'm gonna finish every interview with these questions. If you're in quarantine, what's the first thing you're gonna drink when you get out of quarantine?
Mm. Hmm. I just want some good Japanese green tea. I don't like drinking water for some reason. So I've just
You
been
don't like
looking for.
drinking water.
I know.
That's all we have here.
I know, it's the tastelessness of it. So I was surprised. I was excited when I saw that you guys had milk.
We have lots of milk. They keep bringing us milk with every meal, and we don't. And it's sweet milk, so we'll bring you some milk.
Yeah, no milk to come with our meals at all. Just soup, rice, and meat and veg.
Yeah.
I mean,
All right. So
yeah, I've had some sugarcane juice and coconut that was delivered to me by my mom. So I think those were things I definitely really wanted to drink. But green tea's good for now.
that was before the delivery stopped. Those were
Yeah.
the heady days. Get
Hmm.
deliveries. So we get green tea. What's going to be the first thing you're going to eat when you leave?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I think food has been pretty good so far, so I'm not craving anything crazy. But I think I'd like some fresh fruits.
That's
I've
what
got.
we all said. That was exactly what we all said. Fresh fruits and vegetables.
Yeah,
Um, what's the first thing you're going to do when you get home?
I think shower and put away my laundry.
Yep, same answer from us. I'm gonna have to think of new questions. Everyone is gonna say the same thing. And then last one is tell me something positive about this experience.
Um, huh. I mean, I haven't really seen it as too negative. It just now I get to put that in my, fun facts about me whenever they have those questions like, oh, give a fun fact about yourself. And I'm like,
Yeah,
I was in a government-owned quarantine facility.
you'll never get old. 30 years from now, you'll still be bringing that out, won't you?
Oh yeah, no, my grandchildren would hate it. Sure.
Like, Granny, we've heard this story before. We know.
Yeah.
And you can't really complain too much. It's like they brought me 3 meals a day. They brought me water. I had my cell phone. It's not really a war story, is it?
No, I mean, there's been Wi-Fi too, although it's
Yeah.
not been great since you guys arrived.
You've been to Wi-Fi when we got here. I know. Well, thank you very much. I think we've nearly chatted for about an hour, so that is awesome. I appreciate you sharing your story. And we will bring you over some milk as soon as we can.
Thank you.
All right, have a good day and good luck. You've got 4 days left, right? So hopefully you'll get out on Friday.
Yep. See you guys then.
And we'll see you on the outside. Once this is all over, we're going to meet up for a big party and a drink.
Oh, definitely. Quarantine buddies.
Yeah, sure. All right.
Hope you enjoyed this episode. If you're like me, you may use your laptop at places where you have to use public Wi-Fi. This opens you up to digital snoopers. It's a massive problem. It can be your internet service provider, or you know who, looking at what you do online, or a cyber criminal trying to steal your bank passwords or credit card info, or even a hacker at the next table trying to steal your sensitive data. These days, it is vital that you keep your data safe. NordVPN keeps all of these snoopers away. It makes your internet activity private, protects you from accessing dangerous websites that are phishing for your data, and lets you enjoy your favorite content securely, even while away from home. And it's easy to use, even I could use it. I've actually been using NordVPN for years now here in Vietnam, and I'm excited to be an affiliate partner with them. I've used NordVPN to watch Netflix, BBC, Disney Plus with ease, and I also know that my information and data are safe from prying eyes, whoever they may be. Join now and you'll get 68% off and 3 months free when you go to my link, nordvpn.com/SMB. Just again, for those hard of hearing, nordvpn.com/SMB. The link is also in the show notes. I know nobody checks them out, but go check that out and you can get the link from wherever you're listening to this podcast. As an affiliate partner, it also means that I will get a small commission when you sign up, but at no extra cost to you. So not only will you be getting a great deal through 7 Million Bikes, you get a great VPN and you'll be supporting 7 Million Bikes podcast. Stay safe online and enjoy the shows you love. Any questions, just let me know. You know how to get in touch with me. And thanks for listening to this show. Cheers.